Hello, everybody. My name is Jonathan Dolson, and for the final case study of the year, I plan on talking about the country of Bolivia. Over the entire semester, I have learned so much information about Latin American countries and the corresponding cultures, but I have found a keen interest with the country of Bolivia. I am very excited to share some of the interesting facts and details I have found while doing this final case study. Overview of presentation. In my presentation, I am going to talk about three main items. Firstly, however, I want to explain and detail some general information about Bolivia, but the three main topics I am going to be talking about in my presentation are politics and economy of Bolivia, cuisine and food of Bolivia, migration relating to Bolivia, and lastly, I am including a conclusion slide at the end. General information about Bolivia. Before I dive into the three specific topics that I chose to include in my presentation, I want to talk about some general information on Bolivia. Bolivia is located in the central part of South America and it is landlocked. This means that Bolivia does not border any body of water, including oceans or rivers, but more specifically, it doesn't have access to an ocean. Bolivia is bounded to the north and northeast by Brazil, in the northwest by Peru, in the south by Argentina, in the west by Paraguay, and Chile in the southwest. In Bolivia, the land consists of mountains, valleys, and low plains. Additionally, 2/3 of the Bolivian territory are considered tropical, where the weather is very hot throughout the year. It rains very much all year round. And additionally, these lands are considered fertile for usage in agriculture. However, even though there are many fertile lands and hot weather in these lands, there are cities in Bolivia that get very cold. La Paz, which is one of its capitals, gets very cold in the winter and it snows there since it is high in elevation. Bolivia gained its independence from Spain on August 6, 1825. Simón Bolívar, a national hero for many Latin American countries, helped them in the fight for independence. Bolivia doesn't have an official religion, but the predominant religion is Roman Catholic. Bolivia, interestingly, has two capitals called La Paz and Sucre. La Paz is located at the highest altitude of any capital city in the world, and the executive and legislative branch of the government are housed here. In contrast, Sucre is home to the seat of the judicial branch, and here many government officials believe that the capital should be located here instead of La Paz. The Boliviano is the official currency in Bolivia, and the exchange rate is $1 equals 6.91 Bolivianos. According to the World Bank in 2017, Bolivia had a population of about 11.05 million people. Lastly, I want to remind you that the three topics I will be talking about in this presentation are politics and economics of Bolivia, cuisine and food, and migration relating to Bolivia. Politics and economy of Bolivia. Currently today, the politics and government status of Bolivia is up in shambles. Recently, the old president, Evo Morales, had resigned from his position due to election fraud. Morales was trying to run for a fourth term in office, but it was discovered that he was eliminating and taking away votes from his opposition so he can get the guaranteed victory in the election. Today, Morales fled the country and is currently now in Mexico, seeking asylum. Throughout the history of Bolivia, the government has been plagued and affected by corruption and political interference, similar to many other Latin American countries. Luckily, the feeling and the optimism of the Bolivian people is currently positive because the interim president, is trying to implore and emphasize the importance of having a democracy in today's world. Stepping away from that, Bolivia is organized into 9 autonomous municipal governments or departments. These departments are housed in the cities of Beni, Cochabamba, Chuquisaca, La Paz, Oruro, Bando, Potosí, Tarija, and Santa Cruz. Even though there are a lot of departments, violent crime and human rights violations remain a serious problem due to politics and the lack of police enforcement in Bolivia. Additionally, around 70% of all women and girls in Bolivia remain at high risk of gender-based violence, and many Bolivians in detention have not been convicted of a crime. This means that the police force is truly not present at all, and that many police officers take bribes in order to leave gang members or gangs in charge of the surrounding areas. In the past, Bolivia had better police enforcement, but currently, with the help of the last president, the gangs have been taking charge of most of the streets. The economy of Bolivia has not changed much throughout its history. In the past, Bolivia was held in high abhorrence for its silver mines in Potosí, and the Spanish used to export the silver and ship it back to Spain. Bolivia is still used today to export silver and other special gems, and now Bolivia has included natural gas as one of its biggest exports. Today, Bolivia is ranked 30th among 32 countries in the Americas region in economy, and the combined value of exports and imports is equal to 56.7% of the GDP. Sadly, Bolivia's economic development remains severely hampered by structural and institutional problems. Cuisine and food of Bolivia. Now to more positive and fun things. The cuisine and food of Bolivia is nothing less than amazing. The food of Bolivia is mostly all natural and not so much fried, processed foods like the United States. The traditional food items on almost every plate of Bolivian cuisine are corn, potatoes, quinoa, and beans. These ingredients have been combined with a number of other foods that were brought by the Spanish. These foods include rice, wheat, and meat, and the specific meats are beef, pork, and chicken. The typical Bolivian usually eats a light breakfast, a huge lunch, tea or tecito, and then a light dinner, which is usually served late at night. Now it is time to dive into more specifics. When Bolivians have their light breakfast, foods that are usually consumed include pastries, fruit, salteñas, which are in the middle of the screen, empanadas, pan solo, and eggs. For lunch, Bolivians eat meats, rice, beans, salads, soups, and 2 main famous dishes for lunch usually served are silpancho and majadito. For tea or tecito, which is like a snack time a couple of hours before dinner, the foods that are served are pastries, empanadas, cakes, and sweets. Lastly, for dinner, the food that is usually served are just leftovers from lunch, or usually some meat is warmed up and served with rice and a little bit of soup. Migration relating to Bolivia. The last specific topic I want to talk about in this presentation is migration relating to Bolivia. Sadly, Bolivia has approximately 1.6 million immigrants, and these people leave Bolivia to neighboring countries in search of employment and better economic opportunities for their families. Also, migrants are highly vulnerable to human trafficking and labor exploitation due to the lack of police enforcement. They are vulnerable also due to the police and the lack of security among its borders. Even though Bolivia has some negative aspects to migration, a lot of people do in fact want to come to this country. Bolivia is home to tons of diverse wildlife and many natural parks and forests. Also, Bolivia is considered a very cheap place to live in, and the cost of living here is very low to compare to other Latin American countries. Lastly, Bolivia is also home to many musical festivals and cultural festivals that incorporate traditions and has been home to many holidays that draw tons of people from all around the world to come witness the event. One famous Bolivian festival is called the Alacitas Fair. This festival is held in La Paz every year, and people come from all over to pick up and sell miniature items in order to get good luck in the upcoming year. Conclusion. In conclusion, Bolivia has many great aspects to it, but it also carries many negative aspects as well. Looking towards the future, many Bolivian people are proud that the new president is in place, that the democracy views and themes are progressing, and that the people that are coming from all over the world are still allowed to come to celebrate their holidays together and they can show the world how great it is to be a Bolivian and how Bolivia is going to be great in the future. Here are my citations and sources I used while researching so I can make this presentation.